Well, I think I've mentioned this before. I'm sure I have. I'm a bit of a sucker for the found footage genre of horror films, which I think is pretty much played out. There's supposed to be a new Paranormal Activity coming for Paramount Plus. Paranormal for Paramount, yeah. Anyway, so there's that, but I think for the most part, it's kind of it fizzled at some point, and for horror movies, it's more of the jump scare type stuff and atmospherics and mood that you get from films like The Conjuring and whatnot, and that seems to be at play for now. Anyway, I'm sure it'll run its course too. But I preferred the found footage just in the idea of finding some structure that's closer to reality, that bridges into the fantasy of the film. And it harkens back to my lifelong obsession with Orson Welles' War of the Worlds. And just that idea, similar idea, in that it uses the radio news format to tell the story of an alien invasion and that sort of thing. And so for film, you could use the found footage element as a possibility for that. Another means by and this was done in the 80s and into the 90s, where they had these fake news broadcast type programs. In the 80s, there was one about a terrorist attack that led to the detonation of a nuclear bomb and stuff like that. And then there was one in the 90s about aliens dropping asteroids on us and all that sort of stuff. And so that it's sort of like that, in that it's using elements of reality that you recognize and understand. So it's a certain narrative structure. But found footage was this idea, of course, most famously with Blair Witch, in that it literally was this footage that someone has found, and oh my God, look what happened. What do you think happened here, and that sort of thing. And then Paranormal Activity kind of upped the ante with it, and probably did it. And that was probably the peak. Was those they lost their narrative and their story, and it kind of just fizzled towards the end. But for a while there, they had some pretty good films there. There's one of the aspects of making them good is to have a good enough explanation as to why there is the footage. You can't just have someone with a camera and then suddenly they're in trouble and there's a monster or whatever coming after them, and they keep the camera going. They just wouldn't. I mean, in some elements, he's like, well, they're using the light and everything so they can see and all that. But after a while, it becomes pretty... You're just going to throw the thing down and run. But in Paranormal Activity, they always, for a good bit of them, they had it where it was like security camera and stuff like that. So there was other aspects to get the full coverage of what was going on. And so it's one of the metrics by which to judge them. So like Cloverfield, which is the most high budget one of it, and was an interesting take, and it certainly gave you the idea, well, what if someone had a camera when Godzilla attacked the city and that sort of thing. And that's kind of the premise of it. But after a while, it's like, I don't think the guy would have kept the camera going, so it kind of drops off there. But but there's a couple of them that have, they managed to capture it, and the VHS series where they did it with like an anthology of type deal, and some of them were good, some of them were bad. But anyway, that's one of the important aspects of starting it off and making it good, so it doesn't shove you out. And obviously, like all films, the very important aspect is the actors. They have to have a believable performance, that they're not just playing story characters, they're playing people who just happen to get caught on camera in some bizarre event. And, it goes back and forth. Some people really hate Blair Witch. I liked Blair Witch, and I thought those performances were really good in that aspect of it. And Paranormal Activity, for the most part, did pretty good on that as well. And that does play into it, that that these are people that are just happen to be on camera for whatever the scenario is. So okay, that brings us to the latest one that I've seen, which it came out some time ago, but it was called As Above, So Below. And this is basically a story of a woman who wants to document her discovery of the location of the Philosopher's Stone, which is some pursuit that her father had tried all his years and then failed and ended up committing suicide. And so it sets up this sort of narrative that she's driven by that, and that somehow she failed him or something along those lines. And then there's this suggested romantic interest for this guy that she needs help in achieving this. There's some visuals. She visits a tomb and finds that there's some place in Paris to go, that this will take you to the site, and all of that. There's some interesting aspects of it as they go. There's these tunnels down below beneath Paris, and as they go deeper and deeper, they find all these lost relics and whatnot. There's a corpse of what looks to be a Crusader knight, and yet he's very well preserved. Something mystical's going on of it, and they do find this actual stone. They're able to use it to heal people that get injured. It cannot bring them back from the dead, and some who do die. But ultimately, where does this lead? Well, it leads to the gateway to hell. And they have to find a way back out, which they do, but not all of them make it. The cool aspects of it is that it has a lot of nods to Dante's Inferno. There's some visuals there in it that references that. And and also the idea that hell is sort of this inverted or backwards reflection of the earth, of our world, because they go deeper into it and everything looks like what they just left, but it's all reversed and everything. And eventually they find their way out, going deeper and deeper, and eventually they come out of a manhole and everything's upside down, but once they get out, they're right side up. And so there's some interesting things like that they do. The problem is the acting is not that great. Once they get into the scares and the horror and they realize they're in trouble and they're running, they do pretty good. But the initial introduction and whatnot is not that great. And so it kind of just can't, it's hard to get into it. Some actors are better than others. The girl, well, I've seen worse. When I mentioned like Blair Witch, the sequel to the third Blair Witch film, the second one wasn't a found footage movie at all, and it's not that bad. It's all right, but it kind of gets shoved away because it doesn't follow up like the first one did. The third one was supposed to be another found footage one, and it's terrible, primarily because the acting is not very good. So I can't say that was worse than this. And there's some interesting, like I said, interesting little nods here and there to the mythological descriptions of hell that comes out of Dante's Inferno more than anything else. And so they have that in there. There's some visuals here. They didn't have enough to capture it as much as it is in the actual poem of the Inferno. But there is certain aspects of it. I'm not entirely certain. One guy suffers a terrible fate that he feels guilty about a guy who died, and he says, it's not my fault and whatever, but he ends up being dragged into a flaming car, and they tried to save him, but they can't, and after everything ends, it all disappears except for his feet sticking up out of the ground. And that is a visual from one of the levels of hell where there's a bunch of people, which I think they're buried upside down in excrement or something like that. But yeah, there's a lot of that, and people in robes showing up and stuff like that. There was this other thing that wasn't quite explained. There was this mysterious girl who kept staring at them, and she seemed to be a part of some weird cult-like thing that was going on as they were just starting to go down into these tunnels. And I thought, oh well, maybe she's part of some satanic cult or something like that. You never see her again. She died as I was just there. I guess I missed it as to what that was significant of. But anyway, so there's some interesting visuals and stuff, but it doesn't really hold a candle to other films that I thought did the genre better. But it's not. But I've seen worse. There's some really god awful ones out there. But so it's just sort of so-so. So yeah, there's some interesting things here and there. But if you're not really into the genre, this isn't one to pursue. Thanks for watching and listening. Say, while you're still here, why not like and subscribe and share with your many friends? Yes. Also, check out my mini stores in the link description below. Yes, where you can get t-shirts, hats, mugs, all those goodies with my artwork on them. Oh, yeah. And head over to indieplanet.com and pick up a copy of my comic book, Night Night. Oh, yeah. You can also catch me at my podcast, Mr Nailsin Show, on RadioMisfits.com. And you can also watch my videos on BitChute.com and now on Rumble.com. Oh, my goodness, so many places to watch me and my stuff. Oh, yeah. And if that's not enough for you, well, you can follow me on many social media platforms and say hi to your old pal, Mr. Nailsin.